Eyes and ears don't lie. Coming at you again to talk about this money. Because the country money funny. Where for the longest, MAGA been talking about, look at how many billions we're collecting a month on tariffs. How it's going to eliminate the debt. In your face, liberals. Y'all dumbasses. So, a lot of times what politicians will do is they'll lie and tell the public what they want to hear, knowing they're not able to do it. You know, and they can blame it on somebody else, shift the blame. You look at the Biden administration, you know that student loan forgiveness is unfair as hell and not legal. You can issue an executive order all you want and all that, but should the Supreme Court abide by the laws and the due process of doing something like that, student loan forgiveness is illegal. There are only certain situations where it even makes sense. And those are situations where colleges or learning institutions actually defrauded their students. Defrauded. Not just you went to school, you picked a degree in something that you can't make money in, or you don't see the value in it anymore. It's like you went to a restaurant, you ate the steak, you loved it while you was there. Then when they handed you the check, I don't think it's worth it, even though I already ate the whole damn thing. Because I think I could have got by without the steak, or whatever that situation is. Because if you feel like these were predatory loans and that these schools really did these people dirty, get the money back from the schools. And if the schools don't exist, then we can look at that on a case-by-case basis. But if you went to a college that still exists, why aren't they paying? And a lot of that is, you know, with these federal student loans and a lot of that, they're insured by the federal government. And the federal government would have to step in if these loans default. The federal government doesn't want to pay. They don't want to honor this shit in that manner. So you want to create another slush fund to get the money out of to pay for it so that it just doesn't come from the FDIC assured accounts. It's the same as when with the banks crashing over the housing market in 2008. Those loans are insured to a certain degree. So who pays that? The Treasury Department. If those loans default, you don't want the Treasury Department to do that. So you create a slush fund from other money to bail out the banks. Now, the problem with that is you bail out the banks and they still got the house back. So not only did you not lose on the initial loan, you get the house back, you get some money, and then you resell the house. That was ridiculous. Like if I'm gonna bail you out and you still get the house back, you owe the taxpayer some money. But that ain't how it worked out. And with student loans, when you got federal money to go to school, you already got taxpayer dollars. So you're gonna charge us twice for your education? Because that's basically what you're doing. You're charging us twice for your education. And there's a lot of people in our society where I always felt that anyone who's paid off their student loan or hasn't had it discharged or forgiven, because there's a lot of different ways that they word it, y'all should sue the federal government. My wife paid off hers. We had to pay shit, and there's changes and things you put off in life to make sure you pay your debt before you move on. And I'm hearing despicable things of people who, I'm glad that you're not waiving those. People talking about, well, now that they're getting rid of my student debt, I can buy a home. Okay, so everybody else who had to pay off their debt, hold off on life, and be responsible for everything, they're just screwed. They did the right thing and they get nothing for it. But a lot of y'all who, you knew how much school cost when you went. You took every single dime you could get and enjoyed the college experience and graduated. And even those who, you got the money, but you didn't finish. But you didn't finish for a reason that was totally under your control. I'm not talking about a catastrophic injury or something in life, like a disability or whatever. I'm not talking about none of that. I'm talking about a lot of y'all got the money and didn't finish for whatever reason that you controlled. And that's the only people that are out there hollering about this forgiveness and wanting it are people who don't want to pay their debt. And it's messed up. You're cheating the public, and everybody who has paid their loan, you're not going to get a refund. So you should sue the federal government should they ever start waiving anything. And there's nothing that I can really say that I like about this administration at all, except I'm glad you put a stop to that, because I didn't like it when Biden did it. It pissed me the hell off. It's not fair. So you're shifting cost to taxpayers twice. So citizens who couldn't even afford to send themselves to college or to send their children to college without getting loans, they got to pay for somebody else to go to school? Absolutely outrageous. But that's the same thing that, the tariffs. You look at how the tariffs worked. I knew at the beginning that based on how it was written in the Congress and the Senate, you can't just unilaterally just do this because it wasn't a sanction. You can sanction certain countries, but even that you're supposed to vote on. So when you decided to just go do these blanket tariffs, I knew there was going to be legal challenges to it. And with the legal challenges that you face with that, he's getting wiped. Like, they slapping the shit out of him in the appeals court, which to the most part, the Supreme Court, you can see that they're not willing to follow the law on a lot of things. They're just willing to do what he wants. And they're cowards. They're trampling all over the Constitution and the law. But for some of this stuff, they are actually holding their ground because they don't want to set precedent. And in this particular one, what Trump told him, the Orange Faced Gremlin, Cankle Mankle, the Slob, the Orange Blob, he told him a couple months ago that he wanted a stay to delay them rendering a decision so that they could create and produce more arguments. Well, they just heard those arguments this past week. But what he told him a couple months ago is that I'll refund the tariffs with interest. And they agreed. They agreed to delay because now if you're going to refund the tariffs with interest, the parties that were harmed by you illegally taking tariffs are going to be made whole. It still doesn't change the fact that you had to restructure how your business was operating because you had to pay these tariffs, but at least he's going to pay you back with interest. So in theory, they felt that that was making you whole. So these billions of dollars, these 29, 27 billion that MAGA's out here dancing up and down, doing somersaults on, that's not real money. Because if they stick to the law, he's gonna have to refund all of that money. Now, a lot of these businesses, you've already been harmed by it. You look at GM, you look at Ford and some of these other automakers, you wiped out all of their profit for the quarter. So even if they get some of the tariff money back, you still done damage to the business for the months that they were waiting. And a lot of other companies that have went under because while this court case plays out, they couldn't afford to stay afloat. So you've already destroyed those businesses to the point of no return. The stock market, where all you've been doing is doing stock market manipulation like we've never seen. So if they follow the law, they're going to reverse these tariffs. So then you're going to see the 27 billion, 29, 22 billion that he's claimed over the last 3 months. That's going to be refunded to everyone who paid it. But where the U.S. really loses, the interest that you're going to have to pay them back on it is going to be less than what you've gained from the interest of sitting in the treasury with this money. That's why Howard Lutnick, this crooked ass other dude and another billionaire in his administration, you sold your company to your son. And your son is basically selling shorts on the tariffs. He's banking on the tariffs will not stick legally. And what kind of shit is that? Where you got Howard Lutnick, who has been talking all this public tariff nonsense about how great it is and how great Trump is. But your company, because I don't give a damn if you sold it on paper to your son, it's your company. You're still making decisions. You're still calling the shots. They're selling shorts on the tariffs. So basically, if they took $1 million of tariffs from you, they're buying that $1 million of tariffs, banking on they got to pay that million back plus interest. So that's how they're shorting it. So they're buying billions of dollars of debt because you're going to get back $1 million plus interest. So to a business that's struggling or they're not as liquid, they just paid you for your tariff fees. So in the event that the court case doesn't go in your favor, at least you as a business got back what you were charged for tariffs. And Lutnick's company, they'll lose if they don't win in court as far as reversing the tariffs. So these guys are so diabolical, but they understand what they're doing. There's certain crimes where if it just wasn't so morally fucked up, you guys would be geniuses. And they've learned how to scam the system so much. Where how much is Trump going to get for that? Because you know there's something in it for him. 40 to 50% of his wealth, his total wealth, was gained in the last 6 months. The dude's a loser. He's not a great businessman. All you do is crash companies, bankrupt companies, sap all the equity out of them, take them under, and then start a new one. So you've been doing your whole life. Pretending to be smart when you're stupid. And white collar crime out here, because that's what they want to call a lot of the financial crimes. Some of those have more victims than some of the worst violent crimes that you could ever see, where you just destroy people's lives financially. Steal from so many people. I'll never forget, I heard somebody tell me, well, the safest things to invest in are utilities and all that because people need those. Y'all forgot about Enron? You forgot about Enron? And countless other companies that have done that. They just didn't do it on the scale of Enron. Where the ones that did go to jail, your family still was rich. They're still rich, still living in a mansion. So for some people to steal millions and millions of dollars, it might be worth going to jail for 5 to 10 to get millions and millions of dollars, especially when you ain't got to pay it back. Your restitution, they might fine you by the courts, but they don't take all of your wealth in some cases. So you get out still rich, which is outrageous. But that's what these tariffs are doing, is that they're not legal. And should the Supreme Court stick to the letter of the law, you're going to have to refund all these tariffs. The businesses are not essentially going to be made whole because a lot of them are selling that debt. And Lutnick's company and companies like that are buying them because they know the law. Some of the best crooks are crooks that understand the law. So they're going to make interest. It's like a bank. A bank makes money off your money. They make money off investing your money or interest. So Lutnick's company stands to gain millions, if not billions of dollars if they reverse this and deem the tariffs illegal. Because the federal government will have to refund the tariffs plus interest. And a lot of the tariff debt has been sold to private corporations, these billionaires in Trump's universe. So that's something to think about. And you can look that up. Look at Lutnick's company that he sold to his son on paper, and they're buying all this tariff debt. And it's going to be a big deal.